everyone. Wow, the Politico speakeasy is hopping. I know that folks are eager to grab some food, grab some drinks, and we encourage that. However, we hope to encourage you to do it silently over the next 20 minutes because we are going to get our next conversation underway. My colleague Nick Vineker, who is our Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent, is going to introduce you to our very special next guest. So please give them a round of applause, and please keep it quiet for the next couple of minutes. Thank you guys so much. Cheers.
To welcome Kęstutis Budrys, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania. Let's have a seat here. Yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind of conversations here, as I'm sure it has been for you. But let's get right into a situation that's been ongoing in the Baltic region with drone incursions, supposedly drones drifting into your airspace. Could you sort of fill us in on the latest with these incursions and what is going on here? Is this Russia behind these incursions?
Well, what we are following the last half a year and especially the recent months is that Ukraine is intensifying its attacks against the targets deep in Russia. And the ones that are near Primorsk, near St. Petersburg, Usluga, those ports and oil products and infrastructure. So they're intensifying. The scale is getting larger and larger of the combined drone attacks. And it means that the incidents are also intensifying on our territory and in our airspace. So this is one of the development that we are seeing. So we see the incursion of drones coming from different directions, mainly from Belarus, entering our airspace, and it's not only Lithuania, that's Baltics, that's Latvia, Estonia. Of course, what concerns the larger numbers, they are not within the Baltics, they are in Romania right now. But the new developments are related to the new direction of Ukraine's attack. That is one development. The other one, and that is related to Russia's reaction to these operations and false accusation of Baltic countries as being assisting Ukraine in these attacks. And this is related to unsuccessful period for Russia and for Russia losing the momentum what concerns the battlefield. My reading is like this. I cannot rationalize in any other way why these false accusations are falling on us. And the explanation is that that's what Russia is doing, filling the gaps in the air defense with propaganda, because there are questions also in Russia. So where is our dome? Where is our air defense? Because when they see the lights of fire each night and each day, what's going on? So this is how they explain it, accusing someone else, as being the assistant. So it's one thing. Another thing, this is in the behavior and in overall in security culture of Russia, just to escalate. When something is not happening well, you escalate. It's in our security culture, when you are in trouble, look for the solution. And the solution is dismantling something and finding the way out. In Russia's security culture is just putting the heat on and we will see what will happen. So I think we are in combination of everything. And what we are finding on the ground, what we need, of course, we need more air defense. Right. More counter-drone defense. And then we talked about it yesterday in Sweden in the informal foreign ministerial meeting. But it's also the topic for EU, what we can do within the European Union more to strengthen the Eastern Front line.
Yeah. And just to close on that one, why are these drones going into your airspace? What's your explanation? Are you getting an explanation from the Ukrainian side why that's happening?
Well, there are still investigations ongoing in all the countries, in Latvia and Estonia also, and Lithuania as well. So we can identify them as being from Ukraine, some of them, because we had also Russian drones entering our airspace, not once. So the investigation will show whether it is the consequence of the electronic warfare and rerouting them and redirecting more to the west from east, whether it is the false flag operations, so I won't speculate on this, because it's really serious to find the answer. Because if it is, if there is the intent behind it, so then we absolutely on different assessment. And then the response has to be different. Yeah. But what it is inevitable doesn't matter. Now, of course it matters, but for the moment, what were the causes, we have to increase both the recognition of the airspace with the sensors, with radars, and also the kinetic and other countermeasures.
Okay. So are you asking, member of NATO, do you think NATO should increase its ability to detect these drones, offer more assistance to Lithuania? Yes. Okay.
This is the new reality, and we already agreed a couple of years ago with the NATO on integrated air and missile defense in the region.
Right.
Because it has to be strengthened. Because we saw incursions previously of fighter jets, Russian fighter jets, and now they're also violating Baltic airspace. So we have all the reasons for it, and of course we have to increase the preparedness on the front line. So now this is another additional reason why we have to speed it up and also add counter-drone capabilities. Because this is the new reality, and we will need them anyways. Because this is the part of the resilience and deterrence. And that is why this also the topic for European Union. It's not only for NATO. So Eastern Flank Watch, as the flagship project, has to include in it counter-drone capabilities. And it's for all of us to invest. And we cannot rely only on the frontline nations, pouring in money, building defenses, building all the cameras and everything when we were stopping weaponized migration. Same with the airspace.
Right. And you mentioned air defense. We know that the United States has a big theater going on. It may be hard to procure some of those weapons. Do you have concerns about being delivered on time, getting your orders fulfilled from the United States? Are you looking perhaps to European partners to provide some of that capability to fill the gaps where the U.S. systems are not coming in?
Yeah, we're so interrelated, and our market is so interrelated. It's difficult to separate it. Like in our case, we have the medium-range air defense system, NASAMS. Those are Norwegian produced.
Right.
But the missiles, AMRAAMs, they're produced in US. And in all this supply chain, there are so many different companies and countries. And of course, we see the huge demand of air defense systems. That is one thing. Of course, there are needs of Ukraine in it. But in this specific topic, we can get the technologies and we can get the solutions, and that's what we are working on, from Ukraine. So the very recent agreement on defense cooperation with Ukraine was about it, about the counter-drone capabilities, expertise, also localization of production in Lithuania of some of the counter-drone measures. And I see the big future for whole NATO and for whole Europe in this direction. Because it is what the Ukrainians are producing is more effective and it's cheaper. That's why it was the reason for so successful drone diplomacy of Ukraine in the Gulf countries.
Right.
So that is what we have to do. And I believe that would be the bottom-up integration, de facto integration of Ukraine into our regional security arrangements.
Indeed, and you're leading, you're in the avant-garde on that. I do want to ask you about, you made a comment recently that was interesting about showing NATO's capability on Kaliningrad, and I'm just going to refresh your memory. You said NATO has the capability, if necessary, to raise Russian air defenses and missile bases there to the ground. I wondered if you could expand. What are you asking here? Are you think NATO should make a show of force and sort of demonstrate that in some way that Kaliningrad is in range? What was your intention there?
I guess the whole idea about defending Baltics, because this is one of the attempts to debunk those myths about the defense of the Baltics. The first one is that we are undefendable. We have no depth, and there is, it is impossible. I remember those discussions about the different concepts of deterrence by punishment or the deterrence by denial, when we didn't have enough capabilities on the very front line, and the deterrence by denial was impossible. So we were, there were some attempts to convince us that deterrence by punishment, that would be enough, meaning that we give away our territory for occupation, then regroup and reconquer this territory. And after seeing how it works in Ukraine, it doesn't. It means that the Russians will erase the civilians,
right.
And with all the massacres that we've seen in Bucha and Irpin, then okay, the understanding was that we have to deny the territory from the very first inch. So the message here is that we know where are those capabilities that would be used against the Baltic countries, and we are defendable. And this is how it works. And more troops you have on the front line, more troops you have deployed in Lithuania. And as you know, now we are working with Germans, providing the host nation support for the whole brigade whole heavy brigade come in by the end of 27. So now we have already a couple battalions plus in Lithuania, and we are defendable. So it's not, and it's in defense, what you have in your hands, the real capabilities are as much important as what is happening in your head, you know, how you are defending, because it starts here. So I want to put in everyone's minds this thought and thesis that we are defendable. That is number one. Number two, we just stuck in discussing about the Suwalki Gap. Right. It's about Suwalki Gap there, knowing that Kaliningrad is on one side, Belarus is on the other side, and we have the 60 kilometers of really important lines of communication. But it's not about them. It's about the, you know, what's on the Belarusian side and what's on the Russian side, on Kaliningrad. And we won't defend ourselves only in our territory. So these are three ideas. It's not about Suwalki Gap, it's about the capabilities that potentially could deny the access there, and it's about the defense as such. So when you're putting these scenarios, and I'm moving away from Lithuania to any other part of the front line, we are not willing to fight on our land. Why should we? We have to fight on the other land and, you know, on the adversary's land. So these, you know, basic ideas, and if you wish, those are stratagems coming a couple of thousand years old from China, you know, how to defend your capital, just attack the enemy's capital. And so these should be also in our thinking about the deterrence. So it's about it. And of course, Russian propaganda used it in all the ways they wish about, you know, telling the stories about Baltics preparing to attack Russia.
Well, now they've got plenty more fodder if they're looking for it. I want to ask you about something that's been in a lot of conversations here at Globsec is about negotiating with Russia and about ending this war. We saw some comments from the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, last night, interpreted that the U.S. might be taking a step back from the peace negotiations. I wonder if you would support the idea of Europe engaging directly with Russia, perhaps appointing a special envoy to represent our interests. Do you see any interest in doing that? Is that a valuable thing to do?
Well, from everything that we learned, the main question is what is Putin's interest in all of it, Russia's interest in all of it. Because they are masters in playing, and masters in you know, deception and delaying and disruption, and that was what happened with the huge United States efforts, diplomatic efforts to get the deal done. Right. And it was what, one year and a half, and then the Russians still mastered how to deny this possibility. So it's on their side. What we learned from these attempts that we have, you know, both hands full. One is openness and diplomatic efforts. In the other hand, you have to have leverages and you have to have sticks, because it won't be easy talk. It never was. You know, how can someone expect that you can talk it through? No, right. It will be the very harsh talk in a harsh way, even though, you know, when the Russians are not interested in, and that will be double more difficult.
Right.
And then knowing this and understanding that, okay, there is now the opportunity for Europeans to step in. Yeah. So what will be our package? What will be our demands? Right. What it will be all about? And then can someone expect that Europe will be mediator in it or negotiator for our own interest? Of course we have our interest in everything that is happening around Ukraine, but not only in Ukraine. Like tactical nuclear weapon being deployed in Belarus, or medium-range dual capable missiles being deployed also in Belarus, and many other things. Of course we have interest. And accountability is also for the war crimes committed in Ukraine. It's one of the topics. So can we agree on this list of demands? And can we then be transparent enough among the member states to agree that this is the way forward? How we will define the end state? What will be our indicators of success, that we are successful? Then we can proceed forward. But when we don't have this essential part, fundamental part, and we are discussing the names, I feel that we are falling into the trap of Russia. Because that came from Russia. Those first ideas about Gerhard Schroeder, that's the potential candidate for this negotiation, that didn't come out from any capital of Europe. That came from Moscow. But so I think that we shouldn't fall into it.
But on the principle, because you talk about leverage, and these days it is really Europe that's exerting a lot of the leverage, 20 package of sanctions, financial support for Ukraine, more than the United States in a way. So it would make sense. Do you think it would make sense for, Europe to, if we agree on these demands, to be able to sort of engage directly and say, well, if our demands are not met, then there's going to be a 21st and a 22nd and a 23rd round of sanctions. Just in the principle, or do you think that idea makes sense?
Yeah, theoretically, yes. On paper, yes. Practically, we know where we are. So with 21st package, we will see how strong it will be. Lithuania's proposals, I don't know from which package, are the same. Put on the list Rosatom. All the new contracts for Rosatom. Find Lukoil. Why Lukoil is not there yet? And we know those answers, because some of our member states are still trading with, and Lukoil has the investment. But we had enough time to come over this. Same with financial institutions. And there are so many other loopholes still left in the sanctions. So each time we are providing the package, let's do this. And we cannot. So how come it can be something that Russia will be really serious in considering, okay, maybe we should avoid this one? The momentum that was in US attempts to introduce Lindsey Graham package with the secondary sanctions. Right. It really created the momentum there in overall discussion and forced, at least, just to fake attempt, but anyways, attempt from Russia to show that, okay, they're open for negotiations, let's do something. Let's go to Istanbul or to any other place than they were going. So is Europe, capable of doing this? Theoretically, we can, of course, and it can be even worse what concerns sanctions. But we are not delivering. Right. So how can we, convince each other that we can do this, and also that Russians would believe? And final element, that it is in Europe's hand, but not, for example, in the US. That's the frozen assets.
Right. Okay.
And we saw all the saga, last year. Good that it ended up with 90 billion support loan, but it's not the end. We will have to continue working on it, because this is the real source of support to Ukraine, or this is the real leverage to force Russia to negotiate.
So you would want the seizing of the frozen assets back on the table, a new discussion around that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm looking forward to discuss it even in Gimnik, because it's not closed. Even though it was, you can say it was postponed because we found this solution for 90 billion, but it's not enough. Who believes that there will be no need for money for the upcoming years after these 2 years? Even though for the current year, we still lack the resources for the security and defense need of Ukraine. That's why we have to agree how we will share this burden or these investments to Ukraine before Ankara summit. This is really important. It cannot be done and organized only on part of the European countries.
Yeah, and you mentioned, agreement among the Europeans on the red lines, on sanctions. We see there's new leadership in Hungary, different, but I mean, do you think there are still European countries that are rowing against the tide and effectively, in some ways, shielding Russia from Europe's sort of full leverage? You don't have to name them, but what do you see in, when you get together with European ministers? Are there still people at the table who are kind of pushing back and resisting against proper sanctions and a stronger position?
Well, of course, there is a tough process and difficult process, and through all the steps and phases, be it the legal scrutiny, be it the political discussion. And of course, there are national interests also involved in the sanctions. I understand all of it, and I never call the countries that are opposing certain entities being sanctioned as always being pro-Russian because of that, or being bad in their behavior. It's not about that. I understand that okay, there is the price for it, but where we are sometimes on different understanding is about the strategic assessment where we are and what comes after, and what does it mean to have another year of war against Ukraine, and what could be the price of decreasing this time, and whether we are ready to invest to Ukraine and for how long. I think that we lack this fundamental discussion. If we agree, that is absolutely important. This is something that would build our security architecture for generation to come. Whether it will be weak and shaky, and each time we will have to mobilize the resources, or we can guarantee peace for a decade or 2 decades. So I think that if we can agree on this, the solutions will come easier then, and it will be easier for politicians also to convince their societies on the budgets and on other measures. Because we still have the different vision. From Lithuania side, we promised and then we agreed with Ukraine that we will support the security and defense need 10 years. 10 years, 0.25% of our GDP will go to their defense. And that's what we will need to do. Because we understand that even there will be tomorrow the ceasefire, and day after tomorrow there will be the peace negotiations, and we will have it, you know, in a just and long-lasting form. Anyways, the investment to Ukraine will be needed, because we will need their strong armed forces. They are strongest now in land forces in Europe. Who will finance them? Do we expect that Ukraine will do this instead of recovering the economy and industry? No, we will have to assist them. And that's a lot of money. And that's for the years to come. So I want that we would have in Europe this strategic vision, what is in front of us. You would say, okay, maybe there are alternatives. Yes, there are alternatives, but they are much worse, and they will cost us much more. And it's not only about the potential war.
Clear message there. Europe needs to agree on the strategic situation. Thanks so much. We're out of time. Minister Budrys, thanks very much for joining us at the Politico Speakeasy. Thanks to everyone here. Next, thank you very much. My colleague Jan Chensky will sit down with Robert Voss, president of GlobeSec, for our very last session at the Speakeasy. Sniff, sad.